Billy Lynch had built his life on foundations he thought were solid. The marketing consultancy he'd started from his Seattle apartment had grown into a firm with 12 employees and clients across the Pacific Northwest. His marriage to Nell Owen, now in its fourth year, had been the kind of partnership that made sense. Compatible goals, shared values, easy laughter over Sunday morning coffee. Then Melissa Davison came to visit, and everything Billy thought he knew began to fracture. Melissa had been Nell's best friend since elementary school in Sacramento. They'd grown up together, shared secrets, survived teenage drama, and early adulthood's chaos. When Melissa moved to Boston for a nursing position 3 years ago, the friendship had shifted to video calls and annual visits. This week in late October was one of those visits. Billy had liked Melissa immediately. She was direct and funny, with the kind of sharp observation skills that came from years in emergency medicine. Over dinners and game nights, she told stories about Nell's childhood that made his wife blush and laugh. Everything seemed normal, friendly, the kind of visit that reinforced how lucky they were to have good people in their lives. Melissa left on a Thursday morning. Billy hugged her goodbye, promised they'd visit Boston soon, and headed to his home office for a day of client calls. The weather had turned cold, so he grabbed his leather jacket from the closet, the one he wore for presentations, professional but not too formal. His hand slipped into the pocket searching for his phone, and instead found folded paper. The note was written on hotel stationery in Melissa's precise handwriting. Billy, ask your wife about April 2019. I'm sorry you don't know. I couldn't leave without giving you a chance to find the truth. You deserve better than lies. M. Billy read it 3 times, standing in his closet, trying to make sense of the words. April 2019. They'd been engaged then, planning their August wedding. Nell had been finishing her MBA. He'd been growing his business. What about April 2019 required a cryptic warning note? He pulled out his phone and called Melissa. It went to voicemail. He tried again. Same result. He sent a text. Got your note. What's this about? No response. Billy sat at his desk, the note in front of him, his mind racing through possibilities. An affair? Some kind of criminal activity? A secret Nell had kept? The phrasing bothered him. I'm sorry you don't know implied something significant, something that should have been disclosed. He opened his laptop and pulled up their shared calendar from 2019, backed up in the cloud. April showed Nell's usual schedule. MBA classes, study groups, lunch with her sister Evelyn, a weekend trip to Portland they'd taken together. Nothing unusual jumped out. Billy's phone buzzed. Not Melissa, a client. He ignored it. His training in marketing had taught him to look at problems from multiple angles, to find the story beneath the surface. He treated this like a campaign gone wrong, something requiring investigation and strategy. What resources did he have? What information could he access? He started with Nell's social media, scrolling back to April 2019. Photos of them at restaurants, hiking trails, the Portland trip, comments from friends congratulating them on their engagement. Nell's sister Evelyn had posted a throwback photo of them as kids with the caption, "So proud of my little sis." Nothing suspicious. But then, people rarely posted their secrets on Instagram. Billy checked Nell's location history on their shared Google account, something they'd set up for safety after a friend's car accident left them unreachable. April 2019 showed a gap. From April 8th through April 12th, no location data. 5 days of nothing. He pulled up his own calendar. April 8th to 12th, 2019, he'd been in San Francisco for a conference. Nell had stayed home, claimed she needed to focus on finals. They'd talked on the phone each night. He remembered her sounding tired, stressed about exams. 5 days with no digital footprint. Billy heard the front door open. Nell's voice called out, "I'm home. Grab Thai food for dinner." He closed his laptop and pocketed the note. His wife appeared in the doorway of his office, holding takeout bags, smiling. She wore her work clothes, blazer, slacks, the pearl earrings he'd given her for their 2nd anniversary. She looked exactly like the woman he'd married. But the note in his pocket made him wonder if he'd ever really known her at all. "You okay?" Nell asked, her smile fading. "You look weird." Billy forced a smile. "Just a tough client call. I'll help with dinner." That night, he watched her across the table, cataloging small things. The way she checked her phone repeatedly. How she changed the subject when he mentioned Melissa's visit. The slight tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Did you and Melissa have fun catching up?" Billy asked casually. Yeah, it was great. Nell focused on her pad thai. We stayed up too late talking. I'm exhausted. What did you talk about? Oh, old stories. Her work. Life stuff. Nell's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, silenced it. Everything okay? Just work email. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Can we watch something mindless tonight? My brain is fried. They settled on a cooking competition show, but Billy barely registered what was happening on screen. He was planning his next moves, running through scenarios. He needed information. He needed help from someone he could trust. The next morning, after Nell left for her job at a tech startup downtown, Billy called Jared Schroeder. They'd been friends since college, roommates who'd stayed close even as life pulled them in different directions. Jared had gone to law school, now practiced family law in Seattle. If anyone could help Billy navigate this quietly, it was Jared. They met for coffee at a place near Jared's office. Billy slid the note across the table. Jared read it twice. Damn, Melissa just dropped this and disappeared. Won't answer my calls or texts. It's like she threw a grenade and ran. Smart woman. Jared leaned back. Didn't want to get caught in the blast. What do you think it's about? I have no idea. That's the problem. Billy explained about the 5-day gap in location data, Nell's evasiveness about Melissa's visit. Jared was quiet for a moment. You want my professional opinion or my friend opinion? Both. Professionally, this could be anything from a minor secret to something that could invalidate your marriage. Friend opinion? Get a private investigator. Don't confront Nell until you know what you're dealing with. People lie when they're cornered. You know anyone good? Ron Gilmore. Former cop, does domestic investigations. Discreet, thorough. Jared pulled out his phone. I'll send you his info. Billy, whatever this is, I've got your back. Billy met Ron Gilmore that afternoon at the investigator's office in a nondescript building near the waterfront. Ron was in his 50s, gray hair, steady eyes that had probably seen every variety of human deception. Jared filled me in on the basics, Ron said. Anonymous note, 5-day gap in 2019. What else can you tell me? Billy provided everything. Nell's full name, her history before they met, where she'd lived, worked, studied. Ron took notes on a yellow legal pad. April 8th to 12th, 2019 specifically. That's when the location data goes dark. Ron nodded. I'll start with public records. Court filings, property records, any official documents from that time frame. Then I'll expand from there. This'll take a few days minimum. My rate is, whatever it costs, Billy interrupted. I need to know the truth. 3 days passed in a strange limbo. Billy went through the motions of normal life, while his mind churned through possibilities. He had client meetings, reviewed marketing campaigns, ate dinner with Nell, and pretended everything was fine. She seemed nervous but didn't push when he claimed work stress. Ron called on Monday afternoon. I found something. Can you come to my office? Billy made an excuse to Nell about meeting a client and drove to the waterfront. Ron had papers spread across his desk when Billy arrived. Your wife was married before, Ron said without preamble, to a man named Orlando Hurley. Married in Sacramento County in January 2017. Billy's world tilted. What? They filed for divorce in March 2019. But here's where it gets complicated. Ron slid a document across the desk. The divorce was never finalized. There was a procedural issue with service of papers. According to county records, Nell Owen and Orlando Hurley are still legally married. Billy stared at the marriage certificate. Nell's signature, younger-looking photo, date from 7 years ago. We got married in August 2019, for months after she filed for divorce. Which means legally, your marriage might not be valid. She was still married to someone else. Might not be. Depends on the state and circumstances. But yeah, this is a problem. Ron pulled up another document on his computer. There's more. Orlando Hurley has a record. Fraud, identity theft, served 2 years in Walla Walla. Got out in 2018. Billy's hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists. Where is he now? That's the interesting part. He's in Seattle. Has been for about 3 years. Runs a pawn shop in South Seattle. Ron's expression was grim. Billy, in my experience, when an ex-spouse with a criminal record is in the same city and a marriage was never legally dissolved, there's usually ongoing contact. You think he's been blackmailing her? It's a strong possibility. Billy stood and walked to the window, looking out at Elliott Bay. The water was gray and choppy, matching his thoughts. His wife had been married before. Still was, technically, to a convicted criminal who lived 20 minutes away. Did she know? Billy asked quietly. That the divorce wasn't finalized? That I can't tell you from documents. But she would have received notification of any issues. So probably yes. Billy turned back to Ron. I need everything on Orlando Hurley. Where he lives, who he associates with, his daily routine. Everything. I can do that. What are you planning? I don't know yet. Billy's mind was already working through scenarios, strategies, angles of approach. But I'm not going to be the victim in this. Whatever's been happening, it ends now. Ron studied him. Be careful. Hurley's got a violent streak. Assault charge from 2015, dropped due to witness issues. I'll be smart about it, Billy promised. He drove home in a daze, his mind cataloging every moment of his marriage through this new lens. Had Nell ever loved him, or had he been a means to an end? A respectable cover, financial stability, a way to escape her past? The engagement ring he'd saved for months to buy, had she worn it knowing she was still married to someone else? Nell was cooking when he got home, something that smelled like rosemary and garlic. She smiled when he walked in, and for a moment Billy wanted to grab her, shake her, demand answers. Instead, he kissed her cheek. Smells good. Trying a new recipe. How was your day? Productive. Billy poured himself a whiskey, something he rarely did on weeknights. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Nell's hand froze on the wooden spoon. Oh, April 2019. I was going through old calendar entries for a client project and realized we never did that anniversary trip to the San Juans we talked about that month. Should we finally book it? It was a test, a small one. Billy watched her face carefully. Relief washed over her features. Oh, yeah, we should. Spring would be nice. She'd expected something else. Something worse. Billy filed that away. Dinner was tense despite Nell's attempts at normal conversation. Billy's phone buzzed with a text from Ron. Got more info. Call when you can. After Nell went to bed, Billy sat in his office and called Ron back. Orlando Hurley owns the pawn shop through an LLC, but he's got a partner. Guy named Jerry Huffman. Also has a record. They run what looks like a legitimate business, but there are rumors of fencing stolen goods. Ron paused. I also found large cash deposits in Nell's personal account, the one you're not on. Regular payments of $2,000, 1st and 15th of every month, going back about 2 years. She's paying him, Billy said. Or he's paying her, but given the context, extortion seems more likely. $4,000 a month. $48,000 a year. Billy thought about the arguments they'd had about money, Nell's insistence on keeping separate finances for independence. He'd respected that, thought it was modern and healthy. Now he saw it for what it was, secrecy. There's one more thing, Ron said. Melissa Davison? The friend who left the note? She called Orlando Hurley's pawn shop 3 days before she left Seattle. 9-minute conversation. Billy's grip tightened on the phone. Melissa knows him? Or knows about him? My guess? She found out what was happening and decided you deserve to know. Maybe she confronted Hurley. Maybe she just wanted to verify facts before telling you. Either way, she made sure you'd find out. After hanging up, Billy sat in the dark, thinking. He'd built a career on understanding people, on finding the right message, the right approach. This required the same skills, but the stakes were infinitely higher. He needed to confront Nell, but not yet. First, he needed to understand the full scope of what was happening. And he needed leverage. Billy spent the next day tailing Nell himself, calling in sick to work. She went to her office downtown, nothing unusual. Lunch with a coworker. But at 3 p.m., she left early and drove south. Billy followed at a distance, watching as she parked outside a rundown pawn shop with bars on the windows and a faded sign. Hurley's Exchange. Nell sat in her car for 5 minutes before going inside. Billy parked down the street, used his phone to zoom in and take photos. 15 minutes later, Nell emerged looking shaken. A man followed her out, tall, heavily built, sleeve tattoos visible even from a distance. Orlando Hurley. He said something that made Nell flinch, then walked back inside laughing. Billy had his confirmation, and watching that interaction, seeing the fear on his wife's face and the casual cruelty on Hurley's, something cold and focused settled in his chest. That night, Billy finally confronted Nell. He waited until she was relaxed, glass of wine in hand, guard lowered. Then he placed the note on the coffee table between them. Nell's face went white. Where did you? Melissa. She left it in my jacket. Billy kept his voice level. April 2019. Want to tell me what I should know? Tears started immediately. Billy, I can explain. Were you married before? To Orlando Hurley. The tears came harder. Nell nodded, unable to speak. Are you still married to him? Another nod. Billy felt something break inside him, but his exterior remained calm. When were you going to tell me? I thought. Nell's voice cracked. The divorce was supposed to be final before we got married. There was a problem with the paperwork. By the time I found out, we were already married. I didn't know how to tell you. So you just didn't? I was scared. Nell looked at him, mascara running. You would have left. Everything we built would have been destroyed. Everything we built is based on a lie. I love you. That's not a lie. Billy stood, unable to sit still. I saw you today. At the pawn shop. Is he blackmailing you? Nell's face crumpled. How did you? Answer the question. Yes. It came out as a whisper. He found out about us 6 months after we got married. Said if I didn't pay him, he'd tell you everything. Destroy your business reputation, cause problems. I thought if I paid him, I could keep our life intact until I figured out how to fix the divorce. $4,000 a month? Nell nodded miserably. Billy processed this, his mind working through implications. How did he find out about us? My sister, Evelyn. Nell's voice was bitter. She ran into him somewhere, mentioned my marriage. He tracked me down. Another piece fell into place. Evelyn Burns, Nell's sister. Billy had always found her odd, standoffish. Now he wondered if she'd known all along. Why did you marry him in the first place? Nell wiped her eyes. I was young and stupid. 23, working a dead-end job in Sacramento. Orlando seemed exciting, dangerous in a way that felt thrilling back then. By the time I realized what he really was, a criminal, a manipulator, I was trapped. The divorce was my escape. Moving to Seattle for my MBA was my fresh start. And I was what? Part of the fresh start. No. Nell grabbed his hand. You were real. The only real thing. I know I should have told you, but I was terrified of losing you. Please, Billy. We can fix this. Billy pulled his hand away. How? We finalized the divorce. I stopped paying Orlando. We handle this legally and move forward. You think he'll just let you go? A man who's been extorting you for years. Nell's silence was answer enough. Billy grabbed his keys. I need air. Don't wait up. He drove aimlessly, ending up at Golden Gardens Beach, watching the dark water. His phone buzzed. Jared, Ron told me what you found. You okay? Not even a little bit. Billy filled him in on the confrontation. Jared was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? Divorce is an option. So is working through this. But Billy, she committed marriage fraud. That has legal implications. I know. Billy watched waves crash against the shore. But going after Nell doesn't solve the real problem. Orlando Hurley is the cancer here. He's been bleeding her dry, using her past against her. Even if I divorce Nell, he'll just find someone else to victimize. So what are you thinking? I'm thinking I want him to pay. Not just legally. I want him to lose everything. The way he's made Nell lose peace of mind for years. Billy's voice hardened. Can that be done legally? Maybe. Extortion is a serious crime. If we can prove it, document it, we could build a case. Let's build it then. I'll call you tomorrow. Billy returned home, late to find Nell asleep on the couch, TV still playing. He looked at her. This woman he'd loved, who'd built a life with him on a foundation of lies and fear. Part of him wanted to leave, cut his losses. But another part, the part that had built a business from nothing, that solved problems for clients every day, saw an opportunity. He could walk away and let Orlando Hurley continue terrorizing people. Or he could do what he did best, strategize, plan, execute. Turn the tables so completely that Hurley would never see it coming. Billy made his decision. He was going to war. But this time, he'd make sure he won. Over the next week, Billy assembled his team and his plan. Jared handled the legal strategy. Ron continued surveillance on Orlando and Jerry. Billy coordinated everything, treating it like a marketing campaign with the highest possible stakes. The surveillance revealed patterns. Orlando ran his pawn shop as a front for fencing stolen goods. Jerry handled the actual theft ring, recruiting desperate people to steal specific items, which Orlando would then purchase for pennies on the dollar and resell. They were careful, but not careful enough. Ron documented everything. License plates of known thieves, timestamps of suspicious transactions, video of Jerry meeting with obvious criminals. In parallel, Jared worked with a prosecutor friend to understand what evidence would be needed for charges. But Billy wanted more than just criminal charges. He wanted Orlando's operation destroyed so thoroughly that he'd never recover. The breakthrough came when Ron discovered Orlando's financial setup. The LLC that owned the pawn shop was leveraged heavily. Orlando had taken loans against it, using falsified income statements. He was essentially running a house of cards, one that would collapse if examined too closely. He's committed bank fraud, Ron explained. Lied about revenue to get business loans. If the banks found out, they'd call the notes immediately. He'd lose everything. Billy smiled for the first time in days. Then let's make sure they find out. The plan took shape. Billy would approach Orlando directly, wearing a wire Ron provided. He'd offer to buy Nell's freedom, a lump sum payment in exchange for Orlando terminating all contact and signing divorce papers. Orlando would almost certainly try to extort more money, make threats. All of it would be recorded. Simultaneously, Jared would file complaints with the banks about suspected fraud, providing them with Ron's documentation of Orlando's real income. The banks would audit, discover the lies, call the loans, and Ron would deliver his evidence package to the police, triggering investigations into the theft ring. 3 simultaneous attacks from different angles. By the time Orlando realized what was happening, it would be too late. Nell had moved to a hotel after their confrontation, giving Billy space to think. He'd let her believe he was considering divorce, kept her in the dark about his plans. She texted daily, apologizing, begging for another chance. He responded minimally, keeping her hopeful but uncertain. The meeting with Orlando was set for a Tuesday afternoon at the pawn shop. Billy walked in wearing the wire, his heart rate elevated but his exterior calm. He'd practiced this, prepared for every contingency. Orlando was behind the counter, looking exactly like he had in the photos. Big, tattooed, predatory smile. Billy Lynch. Nell's husband. Where are you? He laughed at his own joke. What can I do for you? I want to buy out her debt. Name your price. Orlando's eyes gleamed. Interesting. The husband wants to play hero. How much you thinking? 50,000. Cash. In exchange, you sign the divorce papers, you never contact her again, and you forget we exist. 50,000. Orlando stroked his jaw. See, the thing is, I was thinking more like 200. Your business is doing well, right? Marketing consulting? I bet you could find 200. That's not happening. Orlando's expression darkened. Then maybe I tell your clients about your wife's criminal past. Maybe I file bigamy charges. Make life real difficult for both of you. You could try. Billy kept his voice steady. But here's what I know about you, Orlando. You're running a theft ring through this shop. You've committed bank fraud on your business loans. You're extorting my wife. I've got documentation of all of it. Orlando stood, his bulk suddenly menacing. You threatening me? I'm offering you a way out. Take the 50, sign the papers, walk away. Or I bury you. For a moment, Billy thought Orlando might attack him. Then the man laughed, genuine amusement. You got balls, I'll give you that. But you're out of your league, marketing boy. This is my world. You're just visiting. Is that a no? It's a 200,000 or your life becomes hell. Take it or leave it. Billy nodded slowly. I'll leave it then. He walked out of the shop, hands steady, breathing controlled. The wire had captured everything. Orlando had confirmed the extortion, made additional threats, shown his true nature. Combined with the evidence Ron had gathered, it was devastating. Phase 2 launched that afternoon. Jared's complaints hit the banks. Ron's evidence package went to both the Seattle Police Department and the FBI. The theft ring crossed state lines, making it federal. Billy pulled one more string, calling a journalist friend at the Seattle Times who specialized in crime reporting. Got a story for you, Billy said. Pawn shop in South Seattle fronting for a major theft ring. Multiple sources, documentation, the works. The next 72 hours were chaos. The banks froze Orlando's accounts and called their loans. Police raided the pawn shop, finding stolen merchandise worth over $200,000. Jerry was arrested trying to flee the city, and the Seattle Times ran a front-page story about the bust, crediting concerned citizens for providing evidence. Orlando was arrested on charges of operating a criminal enterprise, bank fraud, extortion, and receiving stolen property. His bail was set at $500,000, money he no longer had. Billy watched it unfold from his office, tracking news updates, coordinating with Jared and Ron. When Orlando's arrest photo appeared online, He felt something settle in his chest. Not quite satisfaction. More like justice finally balancing the scales. Nell called, crying. Did you? Was this you? Orlando made his choices, Billy said. I just made sure he faced the consequences. What happens now? To us. Billy had been thinking about that question for days. Now we figure out if there's an us worth saving. You lied to me for years, Nell. Built our marriage on deception. I don't know if I can get past that. I understand. Her voice was small. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I was a coward. Yeah, you were. They ended the call. Billy sat in his office, looking at the photo of their wedding day on his desk. They looked happy in love. But it had all been built on sand, and Orlando's blackmail had just exposed what was already broken. The legal aftermath took months. Orlando and Jerry both faced serious prison time. The prosecution offered Nell immunity in exchange for testimony about the extortion. Jared had negotiated that, protecting her from criminal charges related to the invalid marriage. The divorce from Orlando was finalized in 6 weeks once the criminal case made it a priority. Nell Owen was legally single for the first time in 7 years. Billy and Nell attended marriage counseling, though Billy remained in their house while Nell stayed in the hotel. The therapist said trust took time to rebuild, that Billy's anger was valid, that Nell needed to understand the depth of the betrayal. In one session, Nell asked, "What would you have done if I'd told you the truth from the beginning?" Billy thought about it. "I honestly don't know. Maybe we would have worked through it. Maybe not. But we would have had a chance to make that choice together. You took that from us." "I know," Nell said quietly. "I took a lot of things from us." 3 months after Orlando's arrest, Billy made his final decision. He filed for divorce. Not out of anger. That had faded into something more like sadness. But because he couldn't build a future with someone who'd proven they'd lie to protect themselves. "I hope you find happiness," he told Nell when they signed the papers. "Real happiness, not based on deception. You deserve that." "So do you," Nell said, tears streaming. "I'm sorry I couldn't give it to you." Billy walked out of the lawyer's office a single man, for years of marriage dissolved on paper. But he didn't feel defeated. He felt free. Orlando Hurley was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Jerry got 8. The restitution payments would follow them for decades. Billy received a portion of the seized assets from the pawn shop, though he donated it to a victims' advocacy group. Melissa Davison called him 6 months after everything settled. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from me," she said. "I'm glad you told me," Billy replied. "Took courage. How are you doing?" "Better. Starting over, but better." "How do you know about Orlando?" "Nell told me years ago, when they first got married. I thought the divorce was real until I saw them together last year. I was visiting and saw them meeting at a coffee shop. She looked terrified. I confronted her. She admitted everything." Melissa paused. "I couldn't let you keep living in ignorance. You deserve the truth. Thank you for that." Billy rebuilt his life piece by piece. The business thrived. He'd missed only minimal work during the crisis. He dated casually, nothing serious. He'd learned his lesson about foundations built on secrets. One evening, Jared met him for drinks at their old college bar. "You did good," Jared said. "Took down a criminal, protected yourself, handled it clean. Didn't feel good at the time. Best wins rarely do. But you came out on top. That's what matters." Billy raised his glass. "To truth. However painful." "To truth," Jared echoed. They drank, and Billy looked around the bar, students and young professionals, people just starting their lives, making choices that would echo forward. He hoped they chose better than Nell had. Better than he had, trusting blindly. But he'd learned. And he'd survived. And next time, if there was a next time, he'd know the questions to ask, the red flags to watch for. He'd be smarter, more careful, more aware. Orlando Hurley had tried to destroy his life through manipulation and fear. But Billy had turned it around, used his skills and intelligence to not just survive, but to win decisively. The note that started it all was still in Billy's desk drawer. He looked at it sometimes, reminded himself how close he'd come to living a lie indefinitely. Melissa's handwriting, Melissa's courage. "Ask your wife about April 2019. I'm sorry you don't know." Now he knew. And knowing, painful as it was, had set him free.